Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
Good evening and welcome again to this wonderful program, Let's Talk, a program that has been on the airwaves for over a generation here in Nevis. My name is Conrad Liebert and happens to be hosting the program this evening. I'm sitting in for Everett Weber Herbert, our great host. I suppose he's somewhere relaxing and probably enjoying the show. We'll be enjoying the show this evening. Let's just say the show is the People's Show, and we encourage callers on numbers 469-1700 and 469-1616. I must say, before you actually call in, just to be more precise and concise, maybe it's important that you make a note on a piece of paper so that you can get straight to the point. We encourage you to be forceful with your points and precise so that you can give other callers a chance to call in. I have with me tonight Mr. Glendale Herbert and Mr. Roger Fifield, and without much further ado, I'll have a word from Glendale Herbert.
Good evening, my fellow panelists, both Roger, first time being on air with you, Naya, an old batsman. We've been here for many years. Good to meet you, Roger. Good to have you on air with us. This show, of course, I regard it as a show of record as it relates to what happens in Nevis, what's happening in Nevis, rather, in terms of how we look at things, look at the issues. We're invited here and for many years, and this has been going back, as Naya would have said, for the past 30 years, thereabout, 30 plus years, a generation plus. And it has always been a show held in high esteem by most Nevisians the world over. And this is where people who tune in and listen, the prognosticators who come in here and discuss the issues of the day, nothing has changed. And always it's a great pleasure to be here. I'd like to say hello to everybody who's listening. Our voices, all three of us voices here tonight, here in Nevis and beyond our shores. Now, of course, there are plethora of issues that are always facing the country. When we come here to discuss matters of consequence, and we bring a serious attitude to it, because whatever we bring is with an intent to begin to at least analyze in a serious way and bring forth issues in a serious way that would help or at least advance the cause of all of us, the greater good, I always say. So, tonight I'd like to say thank you again to Webo, the entire establishment of On Radio, and the people of Nevis and beyond, here and beyond. Roger.
Good evening, all. Good evening, Naya, our special host this evening, and a special good evening to my fellow panelists, Mr. Glendale Herbert. It is indeed a pleasure being in the studio with you. I would have been listening to you over the years, and I think that you are one who have contributed immensely to this program and the development of Nevis on a whole. I want to say a special good evening to all of those who are listening and viewing, and those who may not be at a radio or computer at the moment. We are hoping that you would soon tune in to listen to what we have to share this evening. And of course, your calls are always important. I always say that we are here to learn from you, and of course you can learn something from us is a program that, go both ways. Just like to say special good evening to all of those who might be celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, and of course those who are a bit under the weather. Good evening to you, those who are in the hospital and those who may be at home not feeling well. A special good evening to you, and I'm wishing you a speedy recovery. Naya, I am hoping this evening, as per usual, that we will have a fruitful discussion. Callers would call and engage, and and I can learn something this evening, Naya. Once again, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Firefield. And I just want to state this before we go any further, that we will always uphold the high standards established by the host of this program. And so we will not accept anything that we deem is below the broadcasting standard of One Radio. First, we expect you to respect yourself and respect others, and I encourage you to make your point forcefully, and so we can have a fruitful interaction tonight. Now, brothers, what do we have?
We've been having inter-primary football here in Nevis for the last couple of weeks. It's been quite well attended by the general public. All the schools are involved, just like inter-primary track and field, and that always is elating to me to see young kids playing sports. The games has been quite competitive and enjoyable, of course. But to see kids at that age beginning to develop their skills, at an early age, is quite, interesting, and it only bodes well, great things in terms of good things, or great things, I'd rather say, for the future in terms of football here in the island. St. Kitts kicked off their inter-primaries last week as well. We've been running ours for a couple of weeks, so we've been ahead of them. So all the schools are involved, from Montessori to the other one, the academy, and name it, Charlestown Primary, Gingerland. Every one of them has been involved, and in two matches per day, on Tuesdays and Fridays, and I think Sundays too, Roger. Yeah, thank you. And Sundays, I think the semi-finals is on next week Tuesday. I think I'm told. I think the finals is on Sunday. So I think it's next week Tuesday and Friday, and then goes into the final on Friday and Sunday, which would be a bumper crowd. Because you know what inter-primary does, and is no less a reflection on what happens in inter-primary track and field. I mean, of course, for the first year, it's not as robust in terms of crowd attendance as inter-primary, with thousands and thousands of people that we're seeing, but it's building, and parents are coming out. A lot of people are coming. So I encourage people to come out and see it. It's a good thing to see the kids and cheer your kids on, and your school on, your alma mater on, whatever your alma mater, whether it's St. Thomas's or whatever it is. That has been interesting, so I put that out there. But to get to a deeper discussion, I listened to Prime Minister's speech last Thursday. I don't know how many of you guys would have caught it, but he made a speech, and what was appealing to me, or interesting to me rather, I think appealing maybe to giving a word, meaning, I'm being too charitable when I say it's appealing, but what was interesting to me is when he discussed CBI, the restructuring of CBI. That has major implications on our economic future in this country, and of course, he's reported that the numbers are down in terms of passport sales, from that end of it, and the restructure of it. He's at least said he has restructured it. And what jumped out at me in the guise of fair share and the struggles we've been having between these two territories that makes up a nation, St. Kitts and Nevis. Each one of them is a territory. You name a board of governors, 5 board of governors, and every one of them is from St. Kitts. So to me, we haven't made much progress. If this has economic implications in both territories here in St. Kitts and in Nevis, the 15,000 or 14,000 here in Nevis, and whatever the thousands are in St. Kitts, it begs for representation, in my mind, as who sits on the board of governors, as to how funds are allocated from the CBI. They're the ones that make those decisions and where they go. And there's nobody here from Nevis defending the Nevian interests. that is galling to me. And unconscionable from a governance standpoint as it looks to the structure. It's trying to making this perfect union between St. Kitts and Nevis. Again, I look at this cannabis board that was announced again under his administration, and there are 15 or 16 members, one from Nevis, Delroy Penny. That makes no sense to me. And to me, it rings, the bell ring more hollower and hollower. For over 140 years, it just the sound that was made in 1970 or 1967 is no different from the sound that's being made now from a governance standpoint, regardless of all the talk about facia. That makes no sense. And I keep making the point that in order for us to address the facia issue, for both territories, the actors that are in government has to begin to bend. It has to begin to bend to the greater good of the country, both territories and the country, satisfying the people. And of course, those who are representatives has to sound the alarm. It is incumbent on them to defend the interests of the people here on this land, in this part of the territory that makes up the federation. So those things jumped out at me. Before I would say one more thing that I hear ruminations and people are talking within the last week or two. I don't know how many of you guys, if any of you guys would have heard it, the discussion about a bridge again between St. Kitts and Nevis. Well, that jumped out at me again. With this sort of mindset, I have major concerns as to the economy in Nevis with the bridge. There are sectors in this economy in Nevis that are going to be affected adversely if you do build a bridge. I mean, from the boating taxi service, which we control, all the boats virtually comes out of Nevis, from the cargo boats, from whether it's Puerto Real or Hustler, it doesn't matter, or the boats that goes between Wally and Reggae Beach, or the ones that go port to port, they're all owned by Nevisians. And not only that, but the custom brokers and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, there are major implications when people start talking about bridge. You have to settle, in my mind, you have to settle the governance structure in the country. You have to settle where allocations are made, where monies are being spent, and the determinations as to where, monies are being spent has to be dealt with first before you can go even into any of this thing, in my mind. Otherwise, we just put in the cart before the cart before the horse. One last thing I would touch on before I yield would be also the idea again about geothermal, and saying geothermal has become a federal project. I have an issue with that again, because we've seen what happens to allocation on the CBI, and we see it again with the Joe administration. In Dr. Joe last week Thursday announcing his making his speech, and of course the board of governors, the 5 board of governors, all from St. Kitts. That makes no sense. If geothermal is your next big horse that's going to carry you, carry this country in terms of the weight of this country financially, how on earth, how are the interests of 15,000 people in Nevis protected? It makes no sense to me, based on the structure in which we have right now, governance structure that is, and from the allocation standpoint in the executives. That has to be dealt with front and foremost in my mind. Roger.
Yes, you would have said a mouthful, and I just want to probably start where you started on the football, seeing that that might be a little lighter than the other topics that you touched on. Yeah. I want to first, say kudos to the Ministry of Education, and the schools, and of course the teams, the coaches, and the parents. I would have seen a few matches over the past weeks, and the crowds are really commendable. The persons are coming in really in their numbers, supporting the various schools. I think that it's going to be really interesting. I think the top 4 has now been decided. I think it's the Ivor Walters Primary School. Well, before today's game, the Ivor Walters Primary School is on top, followed by the Charlestown Primary, then the St. Thomas's Primary, and the JLPS. And from what I understand, it doesn't matter what happened today. Those 4 teams, would go through to the semi-finals, and then the winning teams, of course, would go through to the finals. I'm not sure when those games would be held. But what I find, constructive to me is that the inter-high school football championship is going on at the same time. And I went to the Mondo track, I think it might have been Saturday, to view the game between the Gingerland Secondary School and the Charlestown Secondary School. And to my amazement, excluding the players and the officials, I think there might have just been about 12 to 15 spectators, and it makes me wonder, what is really happening. And then when I look a little deeper, we look at into primary, we look at the various athletics meets in terms of the primary schools and the secondary schools on island, and the other sporting events, the cricket, the football. And if we were to step back and to analyze and see what is happening, especially with our boys, why are the parents, many of these spectators at the primary school football, many of them are parents. So why are the parents not supporting the children in their sporting endeavors when it comes to the secondary school? That, to me, baffles me. To me, it gives rise for our children at the secondary level. They probably feel less loved. The love is not coming out, the support is not there for our secondary students. I believe that as a society, we probably need to take a closer look at that and see, if we have gone wrong and where we have gone wrong. And when you really look at the athletics aspect of it, a child may be running really good. You look at that child and you say, that's one for the future. But it appears as if from that child enters secondary school, that child fall off the map, so to speak. Nobody hear about this child, and if they do hear, they might just say for the first maybe 1 or 2 years. So that is something that I want to ask us as Nivisions, us as parents, to show more support to our secondary school children. At the same token, as I said earlier, I want to commend, the parents and the general public at large who go out and support the football that is ongoing. And I would encourage all, whether your school is in the semi-finals or finals, to go out and support all our children. They are our children, doesn't matter what. If I'm to move on, you spoke about the CBI. I regret that I really didn't hear the speech by our Prime Minister, Prime Minister Joe, so I can't really say much about it. But based on what you would have said, Mr. Herbert, in terms of, no Nivision representative after the CBI program would have been overhauled, so to speak, I think that is something that we need to look at, over and over. We, especially as Nivisions, would have been drumming, that, it is one passport, it is the property of St. Kitts and Nevis, and not necessarily the property of Nevis or the property of St. Kitts. Hence, whatever is done, whatever revenues are collected, should be shared in an equitable way. You also spoke to the cannabis board, and you would have also spoke to the bridge. I too would have heard of, talks again. I think that the bridge talk first came up when the Right Honorable Dr. Kennedy Alphonse Simmons was in power. He was the Prime Minister then, the PAM-led administration, if I recall correctly. And that was a major talking point. And it appears as if that it has now been resurfaced. But my own point of view on that is that we must do some studies in terms of many aspects. As Mr. Herbert would have rightfully said, what would happen to our boaters, especially, I would say 99% of them are Nivision owned. And, a lot of investment, would have been made in those boats and other assets. Someone might say, well, if the quote unquote, if there's a greater good, then, we go with the greater good. But having said that, I'm not sure if anyone would have actually, do a study to come up with the costs of constructing the bridge. And not just the cost, because I personally believe that, the maintenance of that bridge would be very high. We have to make sure that, especially that we are living in the hurricane zone, and in recent times we would have been having earthquakes and stuff like that. I believe that it would be of paramount importance, for us to make sure that that particular bridge, if it were to be built, is in a way that it is safety for all who would traverse that particular bridge. So I want to believe that it is, I should be, just more than a talk. And if that were to happen, we've been hearing talks about the expansion of our very own Van Samir International Airport here. Would we consider it, so to speak, by the linkage of the bridge, as quote unquote one landmass, so to speak? It's already one country, two islands, one country. But how would we deem it? Persons, in my opinion, has been going over to St. Kitts in Jobs to especially to get international flights, going to Miami, New York, and elsewhere, England and elsewhere. So these are serious considerations, I think, that we need to take into consideration even before, we even think, about putting down the actual structure of a bridge. Geothermal, that has been on the mind of many for a number of years, and we all by now understand the importance of geothermal, what it can do for us as a society. The savings that we can get, the many different businesses that we can have here, not just on Nevis but in the Federation, if that were to materialize. I want to believe that all of us here in St. Kitts and Nevis would want that, such, to materialize. In terms of the border, I think you said, Herbert, I really can't speak to that, but what I can say, maybe it's the whole structure of the federal government. Maybe it is time that we speak maybe constitutional reform more, because that too has been a real hot topic over the years, especially around election time. But what I am saying exactly is that I know a lot of things will come into place, cost of running these governments, but maybe what we need to look at is to have a federal government, St. Kitts Island administration and Nevis Island administration. And I dare say that if we were to have such a structure that those who run in their local island government, I believe other members, other persons, should run for the federal structure. And this federal structure should be, comprised of members on both islands. Members from St. Kitts, members from Nevis. Now, if in the absence of that, maybe what, can be done is to increase the seats here on Nevis. Because if we are to be realistic, anytime a general election is called, any party, in St. Kitts that is fielding all 8 candidates in the 8 constituencies on St. Kitts, in any particular election, if the election were to go in a particular party's favor, that party on Nevis, as is now, can form an government for St. Kitts Nevis. When we look at it, the 2 last federal elections that we had, the Concerned Citizens Movement CCM would have won 100% of the seats on the island of Nevis. Let us look at this last election, federal election that is. The Concerned Citizens Movement would have won 100% of the seats on Nevis, which tells me that the people of Nevis would have said that the party of choice for that particular election was or is this Concerned Citizens Movement. And what happened? It almost appears as if that it's a slap in the face of the people of Nevis. In that, the Concerned Citizens Movement and the people of Nevis, as I said, and I know the argument is that it's an 11-seat parliament, of course I know that, but I'm speaking, based on each island, so to speak, and that is hence my argument that we at least should have the 5 seats, 5 constituencies for the local election moving into the federal elections. So that would need some reform, I believe. But back to my point, as it is now, no one from the Concerned Citizens Movement is sitting on the government benches, whether by will or by design, but that's a fact. That's something that I believe need to address. The voices of the people on Nevis, should be counted. We should be counted. Hence the reason why I am saying that we need some sort of reform, because someone is going to say that, the Concerned Citizens Movement, they don't run any candidates on St. Kitts. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, its name suggests that, in my opinion, that if I didn't know better, that they have candidates field on Nevis, and we know that is not so. Maybe the name suggests that, which all parties in St. Kitts Nevis forming government really should be looking out for the best interests, of all of its citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. I believe that we as Nevisians, we need to continue to push, we need to continue to lobby for our voices to be heard, and not just heard, for actions to be taken. It's time. I believe it's high time for actions to be taken, and the powers that be, need to go to Parliament. Let us look at it holistically. Let us have town hall meetings. Let us trash it out with our people, on St. Kitts and our people on Nevis and see how best we can work it out if we are really a federation. Too many times it appears to me that Nevis is part of the federation, when it's convenient for some party or the other in St. Kitts. And we can go back. It was far back as 1993. And we can come up and we see what happens over the years. As it is, with an 8-seat parliament in St. Kitts and 2 major parties in St. Kitts, and I am mindful to say major because there are other parties in St. Kitts and persons who have run independent over the years as well. So, basically, a party can win 4 seats. A party can win 4 seats on St. Kitts. There's no clear majority. A party can win 5 seats on St. Kitts. There's no clear majority. So I really believe that this is something that we really, really, really need to look at. If we throw the 5 seats, in the federal mix, then I think that it could have better results in terms of, members from Nevis, elected members from Nevis, getting a better opportunity to form or be part of the ruling government going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Fifield. We've been doing some heavy lifting here, I would say, but before we get back to the very heavy lifting, I respect your admiration about the secondary school football league, as opposed to the primary school football league. And I'm wondering, don't you think is a matter of protection and the fact that within the primary league the parents need, or there is that feeling that they need to be there with the youngsters? And I totally agree with you. I suppose there must be some other ways which we can encourage the public to come out to the secondary league. I think that's where we probably should be thinking very deeply about, in a sense, because look at the El Comido Willie Park this evening and on the weekend. It's packed with people. And I like to see that. And even when you look at what we refer to as the Special Olympics, the crowd is there. The parents are there. The parents are totally involved. But the minute we move out of the league and we step up to the... good evening. There's a caller. Oh, we have missed that caller. Can you call back, please? Just a reminder that the number is 469-1616, 469-1700. We appreciate you to be a part of this conversation. So, Mr. Fifield, don't you think is that tendency that the parents need to be there?
Yes, I wholeheartedly believe that the parents should. When we really look at our children, and especially our male children, we recognize that they may have some tendency, to deviate in a negative way, towards a negative path, in primary school. But it is somewhat under control. It's not full blown, so to speak. But as they go into the secondary schools, we recognize that, when they maybe with 16, 17, 18, there's where, they start to stray more. And I dare say, most of the times that they stray is because they do not feel loved for some reason, and they want love and acceptance. Now, I would have listened, a few documentaries in terms of persons, around the Caribbean who would have been in gangs, and they spoke to how they gravitate towards gangs. And this is one of the things that, they would have said. They're looking for love, they're looking for acceptance. And I am saying, if our parents could continue to be to the side of our children, both males and females, but more so males, support them in the cricket, support them in the football, go out.
Mr. Fineville, there's a caller. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Holt, Mr. Bartley, how are you, sir?
Mr.
Conrad Bartley, good evening, sir.
Good evening. No, my name is not Conrad Bartlett. My name is Conrad Naya Liebert.
Sorry, apologize. Sorry for that, sir.
Okay, how are you doing?
Yes, good evening, Mr. General.
Good evening.
And Mr. Roger Faifi.
Good evening, caller.
Good evening. Roger, you said something, you said let's go back to 93. Right? But let's go back to 83. Because I'm quoting what Gilden said, and I had the opportunity to listen to the Prime Minister myself. And we're going to go back to 1983, or maybe back to 1980, when our first national hero was Dr. Simeon Daniel, when he was independent and he decided to put the card in our constitution. He didn't do it because he was guessing and he was dreaming. He did it because he understood the politics between thinkers and leave. That's why he put it there. And the truth and fact is that it's an embarrassment to Nivision, because we are educated as them, we are bright as them, maybe even brighter than them. Maybe even brighter than them. And they're still treating us like as if we're the bastard child. Sorry to say that, I don't want to get that back. They're treating us like we are the bastard child. As the old people used to say, we are the bastard child. How you going to solve all these committees and look on the other side of the federation and say that Nevis doesn't have the people to represent us? How you could do that? How you could do that? Not fear. It is not fear. It is not fear. It is not fear. And honestly, we Division don't have to open our eyes. And who doesn't want to hear the word secession? Too bad for them. Who doesn't want to hear the word secession? Too bad for them. And honestly, I do not favor no bridge between thinkers and leaders. Me personally do not favor no bridge. Until we decide that we're going to run away on affairs, we're going to go nowhere. To the treatment we get in, the best opportunity we have, maybe is from what? When the unity government formed? We're talking politics. Maybe the best opportunity we had, and we blow it. Do we going to get it back? I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure if we're going to get it back.
Caller, can I interrupt you?
Yes, please.
Someone might argue with you and probably say the best opportunity might have been in 1993.
Yes, everybody entitled to their own opinion, and I wouldn't even argue against them about that, but I'm just telling you, my point will go back to 1980 and 1983, when Sir Dr. Simeon Daniel decided to put that 113 in our constitution. And we're running away from it. I do not see it get any better at this present moment. Do not see it.
You know, caller may say, some say, I mean, Dr. Jokema comes along and he's been trying to be more accommodating and show a different way of leadership as a federal, the federal prime minister, prime minister of the federation. Mm-hmm. But the examples, these examples that I pointed out, these are structural examples. And these are structural examples from the standpoint of your number one cash cow, your number one, cash gainer in this federation is CBI. Now, politics is representative. It's called representative politics. You're representing people. You're there to work for the people. And if indeed you're working for the people, it seems to me that there should be a level of respect for everybody who is there in Parliament who represents people. And of course, here in this territory, this part of this territory here, amongst the two territories, St. Kitts and Nevis, you must be mindful enough. If you're a leader looking towards forging or, as they say, creating a more unified country, seems to me that the representation, some representation ought to be from this part of the territory. The Constitution speaks loudly towards per rata. It speaks loudly, which is percentage.
I don't like those treatments that we are getting because we are better than that. We are absolutely better than that. I really don't want to go down those roads because honestly, it's not a road that I want to go down, but honestly, it is to me, until we show them that we are better, we're going to keep getting those treatments. And we got to stand up. We're going to stand up. Out of every board that's from every committee, we got one member, one out of 15,000 people, one.
Well, zero on the CBI. Board of Governors.
Nothing.
I think
our politicians in Nevis, we have to start acting like big men and big women. Understand? Have to start operating like big men and big women. Our politicians. I mean, look at our administration in Nevis. We do not have an opposition in Parliament in Nevis. Because of what? Can somebody explain that to me? Because of what? We do not have an opposition in Nevis. So they are putting against one another up here. Fighting against themselves up here. While them on the other side. Gentlemen, have a wonderful evening. I will continue listening.
Thank you, caller. You have made some strong points, points that we have become accustomed to here in Nevis over many decades, I suppose. But let's go back to the CBI program, and I know it was restructured. You want to say something, Mr. Fifield?
Yeah, Naya, the caller would have made a statement about opposition in Nevis, the Nevis Island administration. I take it that he means. But there is opposition in the Parliament in Nevis. However, there isn't an opposition leader, and there lies the difference.
I think you're correct, and of course that's something need to be sorted out. Well, there's many things need to be sorted out amongst ourselves over here as it relates to the politics of Nevis and relationship with St. Kitts. But going back just a bit to the CBI program and the restructuring of it, and word that we constantly hear about the restructuring of it is transparency and good governance. The fact that there isn't one governor from Nevis, what do you guys think about that as it relates to transparency and good governance? I mean, apart from the regular inequality that we experienced throughout the many decades being a part of the Federation.
Well, listen, if there is CBI that has made some $30 billion as they reported, and now you've restructured it, and now you've appointed a new board of governors who make decisions in terms of where monies are allocated and all that sort of thing, and how they are done. And there is, to me, there is no voice. The voice of Nivijans, or the concern of Nivijans as they go towards further development of the country or future development of the country, is absent. I mean, CBI underwrites pretty much most of the budget in St. Kitts, the federal budget. And of course, it underwrites a major part of our budget here. We get subventions of close to, about $6 million a month. And then there are other programs, capital projects that is financed through CBI. It seems to me like I keep saying, the point of allocation is where really the heartbeat of governance is. That is where the rubber hit the road, where you decide to make decisions, what decisions you make as to your priorities in spending, and the people's priorities and needs of Nevis are not being reflected at the Board of Governors. So I find, that to be, to me, ghastly. And disrespectful is not even a great word to attach to this. It's just ghastly. It's just a total. How do you think through this model? And then not only this model, but now we're looking towards CBI is dying, of course. Mm-hmm. And as they say, it's dying, meaning the receipts are down. Dr. Drew put out an entire thing there last week. I don't know if you saw it, Roger or Naya. Where he put out a sort of a schematic as to how CBI has done each year, as high as $620-something million in terms of monies captured and earned. And we're down this year significantly. And the next big thing, or the biggest thing really, is geothermal. Why big geothermal is so profound? The $30 billion is not even within eyesight of what geothermal can take you. I'll give you an example of what I'm trying to say. Iceland, before geothermal, was ranked around number 28th in Europe in terms of countries, in terms of GDP. And not only in GDP, but per capita earnings, meaning how much people earn per annum, per year. Iceland vaulted from, after geothermal, with the Reykjavik company that developed geothermal. It jumped from all the way down there to number 9 economy in Europe in those two areas, GDP and per capita income. Because all the ancillary spin-off of geothermal, and all the money capturing, pieces that attach to geothermal, the ancillary pieces, like even from metal productions and all that sort of thing, all the way through. You can go to data mining, data servicing, name it. From that, and then lowering the costs. Because like I spelled out some time ago, that our fuel bill per year is north of $50 million here in Nevis, and in Singis is north of $100 million separately. Now that money is money that you can hold back in your treasury and do and dedicate it to other form of spending throughout the country, and address other needs, and plus the capturing. So I'm saying to you, CBI is not even close in terms of where this can take you. So, put in the same government framework we have in place, and federal government controlling it as it's a federal project. With all these gaping holes as it relates to governance, it portends a major problem as far as I'm concerned. And the 40-year-old gorilla in the room gets bigger before negligence, which is the inequities. That's the way I look at it.
Well, we hope to wake up from the dream of geothermal pretty soon, and I hope we do that. There's a caller. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Jackman.
Good evening.
Firstly, on the issue of the bridge, there's absolutely no reason why it should not be explored. And it does not have to be a 2-mile span bridge. We're very good in both islands at moving rocks. So it can be part causeway, and the bridge part of it, a bridge as we know it, can be just a much smaller span. It would be good, for instance, if we level some of the hills on the peninsula and build that causeway from that end, as well as level Hurricane Hill in Nevis, and start from that end as well. And wherever they stop, then you can deal with the bridge. I think that would be safer, for one, and secondly, the maintenance would not be as much. Okay, so it is at least worth looking into as one of the options. There is another option which is akin to Palm Island in Dubai, where you create some artificial islands in between and then link them. Okay, that's entirely feasible as well. And the third option, of course, is tunneling, a 2-mile tunnel underneath, under the sea, I mean, we know of so many places that have that option employed. So, but the whole point is, it should be explored, okay, as to its feasibility. And that seems the kind of project that mainland China would get into if many years later down the road, when either they unified with Taiwan, or we realize the real politics of the situation and recognize mainland China instead of Taiwan. Okay, that seemed to be a project they would really gravitate to. So all those options, I think, can be explored. Incidentally, of course, it would make the approach to the runway at Pan Samuel International much safer if Hurricane Hill was leveled. Okay. I'm not so sure of the implications in terms of flights. If you have an international airport in St. Kitts and a bridge, what impact that may have. That would be. But it's interesting to look at look at all the implications. With regard to constitutional reform, though, just this morning, the Prime Minister was asked that same question. Okay, it was asked in the context of not only constitutional reform but electoral reform, and he answered by saying that it will be discussed at the next joint cabinet meeting between the federal government and the NIA. Okay, so I guess we can look out for some sort of release from that. Interestingly, though, the caller who asked him the question made a point of saying that because of the chemistry between the Prime Minister and the Premier, it was probably a good time to approach these constitutional and electoral issues because they would be less contentious. Whether or not that is so, I'm not sure. Okay, but that was what was intimated. And you've made some points about the fact that our constitution creates some anomalies, and the boards and so on, representation and so on, all those are valid arguments. But looking at the big picture, if there is going to be a unique vision identity, there has to be a uniquely Kittitian identity as well. And is it fair that St. Kitts cannot decide on who governs Nevis, but Nevis can decide on who governs St. Kitts? In other words, and I think somebody made the point there, that you don't have, even though the people chose CCM, they're not in the government in St. Kitts, right? Similarly, you can say the reverse is also true, right? It's kind of untenable if the people of St. Kitts, for instance, decide clearly that a set of 5, would it be 5? Yeah, 5 out of the 8, right, decide they want them to govern St. Kitts, but Nevis can come and frustrate that.
Caller, can I interject?
Sure.
Caller, I think that we are getting mixed up here, you know.
Oh.
You speak of St. Kitts, you speak of Nevis, but when I spoke to the fact that it is a federal government, a federal government that governs both islands, that governs the country, St. Kitts and Nevis. I also spoke that and said that maybe what can happen is that we have a federal structure where we have persons representing the federal government from both islands. Now in Nevis, we understand that Nevis is a bit, unique in a sense because we have over here a Nevis Island administration or a local government.
Right.
And I believe, and I could understand from a layman standpoint, why our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts, seems to believe that the federal government is a St. Kitts government. Because I know one would argue in St. Kitts that nobody in Nevis vote for me in St. Kitts.
Right.
And St. Kitts, they would argue, have their own infrastructure on their island to build. But I dare say that the federal government is the government that looks out in a general sense for St. Kitts and Nevis.
That's how it should
And
be. Yes.
and
But in actual practice, is that in fact so? It's not
is it
really
correct?
truly federal structure.
but is it correct? That's the question. Is it correct
If what is correct?
that the federal government, is quote unquote the St. Kitts government? Because remember you spoke to frustration, huh?
It shouldn't be. Even the word federal suggests that it's for both islands.
Exactly.
But we know exactly what happened. And so, at the very least, I would think a corrective measure would be to have some kind of St. Kitts Island Assembly
And
as a corrective measure.
I would agree.
Right. And another anomaly which comes up here, when you were talking about, somebody was saying there's no opposition leader in Nevis.
No, they call it this, that there's no opposition.
Yeah, and you corrected him and said there's no opposition leader.
Yes.
Right? But right now, can we really say there's a functioning opposition leader in the Federal Assembly?
In the Federal Assembly?
In the federal government?
I am not sure why you would ask that question.
For the simple reason, just like the question the caller asked this morning, okay, there is that appearance of, it might as well the Premier had crossed the floor and be on the government in thinking. Right? Because a lot of the issues raised by the other opposition members here, for instance, are not raised by the official leader of the opposition, which is strange, don't you find?
I'm listening. I'm listening, Carl. I wanted to go back to when you spoke to frustration, but you could correct me if I misconstrue what you were saying. But it appears to me that you are saying that if divisions come to St. Kitts, so to speak, and be a part of the government, we might very well be frustrating the wishes of the Kittitians. I'm not sure if I understand you correctly.
Not if there is a truly federal arrangement. What I meant was in the formation of the federal government, right? The Nevis representatives can in fact frustrate the wishes of the voters in St. Kitts in the formation of a government. Isn't that so?
Well, I would say that the voters in St. Kitts can frustrate the wishes of the Nevisian public also.
Oh.
As I said earlier on.
Affect the NIA?
No, I'm not. You see, there's where we go again. I'm speaking federally. St. Kitts doesn't have a government of its own.
Right.
Caller.
Yeah.
Caller.
Yes.
Yes. Just as much as the Nevisian delegation can frustrate the formation of a government in St. Kitts for the St. Kitts voter, Thereby, I said the same thing happens when the government is formed by all 6 citizens, or six citizens in St. Kitts, and nobody from Navy sits at the table. Give me a second. Give me a second.
And that is
I listen to you very clearly.
Really have a true federal structure.
What I'm merely saying.
The federal government should be comprised of people from the NIA and a St. Kitts Island Assembly as well. And then you form a federal structure from both islands.
You and I are saying...
You can deal with issues of parity and so on in that arrangement, okay? Because obviously Nevis have a smaller population. But you can deal with it in that, whether by saying for half a term the Prime Minister must be in division, or and the next half petition, that kind of arrangement, or in the allocation of particular ministries, you take into account the fact that there is not parity, there is not equality in terms of numbers.
Well,
okay?
Caller.
Yeah.
Just as by way of information, and I don't want to stray away from this too far. That can be dealt with, easily, because we've seen a guy from our jurisdiction here by the name of Hamilton, who went to the United States and was the chief writer of the Federalist Papers, which formed the Constitution, and he wrote about 55 articles out of maybe 80. And one of the things he's put in there, which was critical for the United States to come together, is that states like, let's say, New York, which is a big state, millions and millions of people, and a state like Maine has leverage at the federal level and in the Senate in terms of 2 senators, just like New York. And that is where ratification is done. Hear me out. So you have leverage, but all of that can be worked out in terms of size. So people feel, you feel a sense of parity.
Right.
But here, back to where we were saying, you were talking about earlier, the bridge issue, right? And I picked up at the point of the number of issues that come along with the bridge. Unless you've sorted out this governance structures, it seems to me which country is hurt more is Nevis from a financial standpoint with a bridge. And I've done, with my little rudimentary surface analysis, it tells me that yes, my boaters are hurt. My entire boating industry is hurt here in Nevis as well.
Yeah, but isn't that part of regular development?
Hold on a minute.
You can say that the boat owners from who used to do the Bastia Charlestown run were affected by the ferry the sea taxes.
Yes, but
it's part of development.
Yes, it's part of development. But you see, what I'm really trying to get across to you is, even if they are hurt, again, I go back to allocations. The people who sit at the table of allocations would have to address these things, because if they're hurt, somebody got to make up the gap. And those who sit at the federal level, you need representation from Nevis to at least ease the pain of those who will hurt. You understand, and understand the issues of Nevis. You can't have a man from Sandy Point articulating the issues here in Charlestown or the issues in Gingerland. You must have people at the table. I need to get that through to you.
Can you have a man from Sandy Point articulating the issues of somebody from Cairn?
That's the point I'm making. You can't have 1/3 of your population not being represented where you make laws, or 1/3 of your population at the seat of power of allocation. It does not make any sense in terms of going forward and unifying the country. If you are fair-minded, and if you are, you're a goodwill seeker, you would agree with me.
Well, obviously, I feel that all segments should be represented. It would have been nice if, for instance, the three constituencies in Nevis, right, were considered just like any other constituency in St. Kitts. But we know because of the unique Nevisian's identity, that it would never be like that. Okay? You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It would never be like that. I feel, and I think, and we don't have to wait for the federal or for the sitting politicians to do it. I think we make decisions too much on personal chemistry between politicians. And when that change, we end up in problems. I don't think we should go that way. There is no reason why some kind of discussion can't be had among the populace about what kind of federal structure would best suit us. And it should be one that is fair, equitable. Other countries wouldn't mind joining it because it will be seen as fair and equitable to everybody concerned. I think it's possible. It might be difficult, yes, but it's possible. I mean, for instance, what's going to become of islands like Anguilla and Tortola and so on? Are they going to remain colonies forever? It should be in an arrangement, okay? Because the regional integration is going really slow. But there should be an arrangement that will show the other countries, hey, I can be part of this. I don't have to give up all of sovereignty, since that is so important to so many people. But it's an arrangement that I can join, okay, and have cooperation in so many areas. That is possible here. We can show the way towards that kind of arrangement, but it has to be started, and we don't have leaders who are willing to start it, because everything is about convenience, right? It might be convenience now to stick with the arrangement, and so we ain't touching that, and kick the can down the road.
Just a quickie. We all know that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. In St. Kitts Nevis, that's unique. That has not happened. It doesn't live nor breathe, as far as I'm concerned. Grow. And second, no. So I agree with you with that. And second, I'd like to say, right, St. Kitts cannot divorce Nevis. Nevis may be able to divorce. I never see parents can divorce their kids, but kids do divorce their parents. I mean that is a light joke. But what I'm saying to you, you never see a big country. Even Canada or Quebec, Canada says it's going to divorce Quebec. Quebec wants the secession. The big country, the mother can never divorce. It's just a way how things are done.
You can't have it both ways. Don't look at the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis as a mother-child relationship, right? I think that's a non-starter, right? I feel, for instance, that if there should be a similar 113 clause that Nevis has for St. Kitts. I'm saying that for parity is not that I want it to be used. I personally feel that the islands really complement each other, and I would hate to see us part separate ways. But there is such a thing, like I was saying before, of an island identity between both, okay? There is such a thing.
Caller, you have made your contribution, and we appreciate that. When I'll beg to move on at this point.
Yeah, sure. Okay then. No problem.
Yes, so we go to a break for a moment.
Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938.
In Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, Vaughn Radio.
We're back. We're back. I just want to ask you, gentlemen, do you think there's a lack of coordination between the federal government and the NIA, and that, in a sense, is a great source of the hills and valleys that exist?
I think it's an awkward dance, you know. You have two partners who are not in sync at all times, and they seem rather awkward. The Prime Minister, sometimes it seems to me that the federal administration don't know how far to go with the NIA, because the Constitution spells it out, the powers of the NIA, and sometimes I do see where the NIA don't even know the powers that it has.
Hello, caller.
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Mr. Herbert, he has made some very important points tonight about the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis. And some callers have come in and made some suggestions about secession. And I must tell you, with the situation that Mr. Herbert explained tonight about the CBI program, the only way I can see out is that we have separate governments. We tell St. Kitts, you have your own government, and Nevis have their own government. Are you with me, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I was thinking.
Sorry, caller. You seems to have dropped out, and can you please call back? And you seems to be taking a good line of conversation.
Yeah.
One we like to pick up on, of course. So back to that question I asked before, and you referred to it as an awkward dance.
Yeah, it's an awkward dance. We've been dangling secession in front of the eyes of Navijans for many years. And somehow it's been quite a slow march towards it. Now, because I think Navijans and many on the other side of the Narrows.
Do we? And this is a question between do we know what we really want? Do we know what we want?
I think we want fairness.
Yeah.
And anybody in any sort of relationship, it doesn't matter what it is, wants fairness. So I think we know what we want from that standpoint, as fairness.
Caller, good evening.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I got something disturbed the call before.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Anyway, I was saying that for these last years, since we've had a new government, I've been feeling that there is a change in St. Kitts to treat Nevis right. But when Mr. Herbert explained the representation, that we have no representation in the CBI program, I feel that it's time that we put Mr. Simeon Daniel offer of secession away from St. Kitts. Because I can't see if this Prime Minister is not going to give us representation in the CBI program, it means that he is undermining Nevisians and the Nevis. Are you with me, sir?
Yes.
And
And caller, the Constitution speaks loudly. On the issue of pro rata and percentage, whether or not, as the Prime Minister stated, and he's seeking a new direction forward in his earlier, pronouncements.
Right.
This smacks in the face of it. It shows the blind spot do exist still there with politicians in St. Kitts, where they can't get past the blind spot.
Right.
And every Navijans, I think, would be aggrieved at something like this. Particularly, this is the major point of, like I keep saying, allocation. and the needs are not being echoed, at the highest levels of allocation.
At the very highest level. I was actually irritated about when they announced that Mr. Butcher is the father of Senkits and Nevis. I thought that he would be the father of Senkits and Simeon Daniel would be the father of Nevis. You with me?
Yes.
More that way.
Yeah, the caller before you said that Nivigans has a Niviganness about them, a uniqueness about them, which they're whole. And of course, you cannot allow, politicians in Senkis to eviscerate that or soon over that. That fact, meaning that Simeon Daniel is the father of Nevis, modern day Nevis. And just like Bratcher is in Senkits. So you have to hold people feet to the fire in terms of creating your own identity, which Nivigans are very, very, stand-upish about.
Yeah. And I have been listening some discussion about the energy that is going to be provided in Nevis. What do you call it?
Geothermal.
Taking out from the sulfur. And it seems though that they want to have control on anything that is provided in Senkit, in Nevis. But Nivision is not supposed to have any control on what is provided in Senkit.
Go on, caller, because I suppose you're touching something I was just about to make reference to. I think everyone who knows me knows that I'm a secessionist. I was born, in that, within that line of thinking, and I think I would continue to be a secessionist. So, but I don't want to display my partiality, being the host of the show this evening. But I think reference being made to the fact that the biggest revolution, economic revolution we're about to see is having geothermal, brought on stream. And I think Mr. Herbert have made reference to the fact that on the bodies of governor there isn't one individual on that board as well.
Yeah,
from Nevis.
Right,
and that is not acceptable.
It's not acceptable. It particularly, what's ringing loud for me? When I hear CBI generated some $30 billion, and I don't know if you guys can see $1 billion, $1 billion US spent here on Nevis. Out of that 30 billion, but that doesn't what's 10% of that? 3 billion. Yeah. So I dare say, we're talking about less than 5% of that. And I'm making a stretch. If that is the case, and we did not have anybody at this table for allocations again.
No.
You see, that is what worries me.
Well, are we doing this too?
I have been a secessionist a long time ago too, but at the same time, I was hoping that we can work something out with Senkis and become closer. And I saw some signs of example with the new Prime Minister. But we have to realize that he is only one person in that government. And the government of Senkis is a reflection of how the people of Senkis feel about Nevisions and Nevis. We have to learn right now, take a stand and accept that this is the situation it is. Because I believe even though that he wants to be nice to Nevis, there is people in his government who doesn't want that. And we have to accept that and move forward to secession. That's how I feel. If you just have to, you had a caller about, I think, a couple of minutes ago, and he's from Senkis, and he calls in all the time. And every time you talk about Nevis representation, he tries to go past it. You you, sir.
Yes, sir. What do you think about the bridge, the proposed bridge, Colin?
That is another thing. That is to also minimize the quality of Nevis, because St. Kitts have a larger population, they have a better airport, and they would be controlling Nevis and attracting Nevis population to St. Kitts to use, and we would not benefit from it.
And another thing, Paula, that comes to my mind would be affected. I said the custom brokers, but also our treasury would be affected because it just hit me that the port of entry now primarily in terms of airlift and cargo airlift is St. Kitts, and you can go back and forth and you can bring in whatever you win. Boom, that revenue from customs. Roger, you're a custom man. You tell me that revenue does not go to the NIA.
Well, the revenue will only go to the NIA if the cargo comes over from St. Kitts and Bonn. But if they are cleared in St. Kitts, that revenue would go to St. Kitts. It's as simple as that.
I can also tell you Tropical won't be coming over here anymore.
It's fascinating that.
Tropical won't be coming here anymore.
So I just I'm sitting here.
One of the problems I think that we have largely in Nevis is that you can't get the two oppositions in Nevis. You can't get the two parties in Nevis to work together, because you have to have the two parties in Nevis to work together, because St. Kitts has such a strong hold on Nevis. We should be together, whatever. We should have certain issues that we agree upon. Whether you're a Nazi or you're a CCM, you write it up together that you agree upon. I mean, take for example, fair share. That shouldn't be an issue to fight about between NAPI and CCM.
True.
Correct.
I agree with you. You can put me in the check column and that's the argument.
That is our basic problem, and the Labour government knows how to play, or any party in St. Kitts, they play the two parties in Nevis against each other.
Intelligent as we are.
Fascinating.
And that is what we have to try to get past by Nevis having the two parties working together against St. Kitts, because St. Kitts is our enemy. Doesn't matter how you put it, St. Kitts is our enemy. In politics, they're our enemy. Nevis people get on to St. Kitts, and we have Nevisians. I have family from St. Kitts, and when they go to St. Kitts, they become another person. They're not Nevisians anymore.
Fascinating. So what is that thing that happens now, Roger, when you go to St. Kitts? I mean, if you look in St. Kitts, in the days of Bracha, the upper echelon of St. Kitts, most, the minister, what do you call it, the civil servants, the top civil servants were Nevisians for the most part. If you look across St. Kitts from Cairn to East Bastia, which is, what do you call that place? East Bastia and West Bastia, and you go down to St. Paul's, Nevisians can't done. Most of the families, the names identify the Williams originate from the Leibards, originate from Nevis, on and on, the Browns, the Herberts, the Hendricksons.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, on and on, they're all Nevisians' name that goes back.
I mean,
so what happens?
Half of St. Kitts is Nevis, half of St. Kitts people is Nevis people. That is,
their parents or grandparents, so what happens to a Nevis man in St. Kitts?
It's never about the people. It's never about the people. I think the people are the people, and we are related in some way or the other.
Right.
It is the politics. And
the ideology,
the political ideology, which is enrooted, is engraved, embedded in a deep way, that St. Kitts must have control of Nevis. And to me it looks from a Kittitian point of view, the Nevis situation is the Nevis situation, and we blame them for their situation. I mean, you say that the Nevisians political party should work together. I'm not sure if that's correct to say, but they should. Both of them should have this serious interest of Nevis at heart, and in doing so, they would find that there are areas where we must come together.
Naya, I believe, right, it's my opinion. This is my opinion. I believe when it comes to territories against territories in terms of going forward, it's like an act of war. And parties, the politics it goes below the surface, and people come to the fore. Because we're talking about the future survival of your country, one way or the other, and you have to come on the same theme. America goes to war, parties has to stand down, Democrat and Republican. The administration is what it is, who is in power, and they rule the day. I don't see anything different naysayers when it comes to a state at that point.
And they're just human beings. They're going to take advantage of the construction of the political way of life. They're not. Most people are not going to be concerned. Most of the people in government, they're not going to be concerned about Nevis. They're representing Sankit. We have to represent ourselves. The people who are sent down to Sankis has to represent Nevis. And the only way you could represent Nevis is that the two parties in Nevis have to have some, maybe not everything that they have to have in common, but certain issues they have to agree upon, so that the parties in Sankis cannot play them against each other. We have to see, the two parties in Nevis have to see each other as having the same intentions, or basically the same intentions. Because the Sankits government is not going to care about the Nevis people. They don't care. They're going to do anything to keep them in government, in Sankits.
McConnell, it really should be the Sankits Nevis government, and not the Sankits government.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But if you listen sometimes to discussion about the passport, they will never mention that Nevis is on the passport. Nevis is about. They will talk like Sankits. The passport belongs to Sankits.
Carla, it's kind of fascinating. If I can just interject, I was in New York sometime, and while walking on the street, one of the vendors, they look in sales, and they were selling a wide range of different flags. And I saw a flag that looks like the flag of St. Kitts Nevis. And I really wanted to purchase one, until she opened the flag and I saw the word St. Kitts on it. So I asked, well, what country flag is that? And she said, St. Kitts. So I said, is there a country named St. Kitts? And she was like, yes. So I said, well, I'm from Nevis, and it's supposed to be St. Kitts and Nevis. So I'm just saying this, even in the bigger countries, it's like St. Kitts and not St. Kitts Nevis. It happened right there in New York. There are flags.
That is true. I've seen that many times, many times.
Is there a caller?
Yeah,
Good evening, caller.
I'm still there.
One of the things, caller, I don't think that you might have touched on this one, but probably one of the previous callers. I think the caller had asked about, the opposition in the Federal Assembly.
Right. Yes. I heard that. Yes. He wanted to make it look as if they had the same problems in St. Kitts as they had in Nevis, which is nonsense.
But what I would say with that, and we can go back, over the years. We can go back from when Mr. Amni of blessed memory was premier.
Right. Yeah.
He was premier of Nevis. He was opposition leader in St. Kitts until he allowed Mr. Gishard of blessed memory to be opposition leader. Now, I am saying this to say, it's a kind of sensitive and ticklish, thing to maneuver and to go forward smoothly. And I would have heard the Honorable Mark Brantley said something recently, and I see wisdom in it. He would have said something to the effect, I'm not quoting him, but he would have said something to the effect that when he was younger, he did things differently. Now he has grown and he get, more wisdom, wiser. Those are my words. He thinks in a different light. And it is really true. When elected to Parliament, we are there to reflect the views of the electorates. Because remember, the electorates, they have the say on voting day. And they would elect individuals to represent them in Parliament. Now, having said that, if the representative in Parliament happens to be on the opposition benches, it does not necessarily mean that if the government brings a bill, for example, up in Parliament, that the opposition should oppose it.
Oppose it? No, not necessarily. If you think it's a good bill, it's a good bill.
Right. If it is a bill that you think that need opposing for whatever reason, then of course you jump on it, you oppose it, and not just oppose, but I want to believe that you want to show where it could be improved, if it could be improved on, or if it is not possibly necessary at that point in time, to maybe get off the table, so to speak. So
they have done that. The three representatives from Nevis has pointed weaknesses in certain bills that they brought to the table, and they have made changes to it.
Yes.
So I mean, he's way off. The problem of not having the NAPI united in Nevis, where they could decide which of them is the leader of the party, is a big problem. It makes our politics a nonsense politics in Nevis. It is embarrassing living here in Europe and in my island. They cannot agree. Two people win a seat and they cannot agree on which of them is going to be the leader of the party. That is very embarrassing. So there is no comparison to the situation in St. Kitts. He's just trying to create trouble that he does all the time. Every time he calls in, that's all he does. Try to make Nevis look bad.
Okay, thank you, caller. You have made some firm, solid points, and we appreciate your contribution. I'll beg to move on at this point.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So, guys, there's a presidential election in the United States 2 weeks away. It's getting 2 weeks away. It's getting bouncy.
It is bouncing.
The Democrats, I don't know. I don't know how good it looks. How does it look to you?
I think the Democrats is slipping a little bit. I mean, they had that momentum after Biden dropped off out the race, but I think Donald Trump have been getting a lot more attention, I suppose, based on his the areas which he's propelling most, really. I think the most important issue in this election is inflation and the economy. Some may argue differently, and I think that's where I think Kamala Harris have been losing some grounds, really. She's been on about an opportunity economy, and that is not directly, to me, impacting on the real bread and butter situation, which is affecting America in a big way today. I honestly think Donald Trump has been overusing the idea of immigration, and I think he has made some big mistakes. Hello, there's a caller. Good evening, caller.
Yes, just two quick sentences. First of all, the role of His Majesty's loyal opposition is to oppose and present itself as an alternative to the governing party. That is how it is in a parliamentary democracy.
Yes, but you would agree with me that an opposition sometimes agrees with legislative proposal. We'll look at then what you're talking about then.
There must be. The primary role of an opposition in a parliamentary democracy is to oppose and present an alternative and keep the current government accountable. This is at odds with what is happening now, where the premier is essentially depending on the federal government intervention. Yeah, that's conflict. Okay, that was the first point. And the second point I was going to make is that someone said that the elected representatives are there to represent the views of their constituents. In a parliamentary democracy, it's a nuance, I know, but an important one. In a parliamentary democracy, the MP is there to represent the interest of. That's a very different thing to the opinions of. Okay? The interest of his constituents. Right? In other words, that gives him some leeway to use his judgment accordingly. Right? Otherwise, he could just take a poll of a constituency and whatever the people say, well, they go with it. That is not what parliamentary representation is about. Those are the two things I wanted to mention.
Well, caller, of course, your second suggestion is also part of the democratic process. You are not totally wrong in what you have just said, and I think there's some of that type of feeling exists within the political community here in St. Kitts Nevis as it relates to the Honorable Premier. But I must say that we are now dealing with another issue, another topic, and I would say that we appreciate your comments once again.
Those two things, because we
thank you very much, Colin.
Follow the parliamentary system to the letter, really, and so we get these little things coming in where we often make mistakes.
So like I was saying earlier, we are on to the presidential elections. I mean, it has a global interest. The entire globe is interested because, of course, America being what it is and being the so-called superpower of the world, not just militarily, but of course financially, being they control the world financial system from the standpoint of their dollar being the dollar of record, being that right. So the dollar of record, which is basically the dollar that backs most currencies around the world. At one point, it backed maybe 80-90% of the world. And now, so every dollar, whether you're in China, whether you're in Japan, the yen or whatever it is, and the pound, they're all attached to the US dollar, and its currency of reserve is since 1944. It was recognized as the currency of reserve by all countries after World War II at the Bretton Woods Conference, and then that's when America really began to show its muscle.
What do you say?
So now, that's why every country in the world, everybody in the world, four corners of the world are looking on and with interest, because whatever the outcomes are would affect them.
I think that the rest of the world, we must look on. We look to America as the quote-unquote head of the free world. But to get into the party politics in America, I believe that Mr. Trump has a way in interviews to somehow get the interviewer to ask him questions to what he want to answer. He has a way to jump around things, to dance around things, and I believe that the electorate in America, they probably need to look at that, to see, is he, look at some of his moves in the heart of COVID. In the heart of COVID, when the tests, these nasal tests and stuff, for the COVID, were scarce. It's alleged that he sent to Putin, to Russia, and instead of having it in America to aid his citizens. So we have to see what's going on. Of course, whichever party wins in America would have some sort of effect, whether negatively or positively, on us here in the Caribbean, and I dare say in St. Kitts Nevis. But my own personal views, I believe that it's going to be a really tight race. I am not sure that I believe America is at a crossroad. I believe, and this is just me personally, I believe that had Kamala Harris, if she was, I know I'm gonna get bashing for this.
Yes.
But if she was a man, I believe that the Democrat would have won hands down. He would not have been as tight. But I am not sure that America, I think they're undecided, and they're still asking themselves, are we ready for a female president? I really believe that is pertinent in the back of their minds, why the Democrat is in such a close lock fight with the Republicans. But I believe that in the end she's going to pull through. I think they had early voting started some time ago in Georgia. I think the early voters, the numbers were really high. I think that Biden last election would have won narrowly over Mr. Trump, the first in some maybe 30 plus years. And what the pundits are saying is that the voter turnout is so high that it favors the Democrats. So that is a good sign for Kamala at this point in time.
Just one question. What issue do you think is the biggest issue in this American election?
Well, I believe the economy. I believe that folks, although that on paper it is said that Biden would have turned around the economy, so to speak. But I'm not sure if if it is felt in the pockets of the man and the road, the average man. And I believe one of the things that's to answer that part with that question. But one of the things too that I think that Ms. Harris now, I believe that she's more comfortable within herself now after President Biden, would have come out and say, each president basically, should chart their own path. So I believe now you're hearing us so that, things from experience, things from our background and stuff. I believe that she now feel a little more comfortable in her skin, to go out and campaign and really say, what she want to say without hindrance.
Then, same question.
I thought I was waiting for you to pick up the button and go forward. But anyway,
the same question to you. What do you think is the big issue in
well, the biggest issue in America right now, in my opinion, with immigration and inflation, the economy. So, I don't think most Americans feel that the economy is a great economy. If you have inflation such as what it is, the kind of numbers there are, people are hurting. And it's been shown and the way people are attending and coming out, the enthusiasm. Now, I don't know if the Democrats has as much enthusiasm as the Republicans do right now. If I were to say it, I think the Republicans has more enthusiasm, meaning in terms of they call it the enthusiasm gap. When voters come out, they energize. How energized are you? I think they are more energized right now. I think one of the things you have to look at, in my opinion, is, even polling or what have you, Trump generally is underpolled. People, based on the media coverage you've had for many years, a number of years, people are more tepid or more not as forthcoming in interviews or in, when you're doing polling and all that sort of thing. Even in media, they secretly, like, there are people, for example, if you look at polls, for example, a black running against a white candidate, a lot of times in the polling suggests that the black candidate is ahead by 5 points, right? And then the day of the election, the white person may beat them by 1 point or 2 points or 3 points, or is neck and neck. So what I'm really trying to say, people say one thing when does something else. And as it relates to Camilla and the racism factor, a woman factor, of course, yes, first timer, but the woman factor, the race factor also, there are a lot of hidden agendas. And not coming out in polling, and if they're neck and neck, and believe me, Trump is on the poll, because they set the tone against Trump for the last 7-8 years, drumbeat in what's called legacy media, such as like the big ones, the CNN, the New York Times legacy, not online media, which is different. What you see is basically anti-Trump message, so people are more tepid, and if he's leading or he's neck and neck, Billy, I just don't see it with all the other sub-levels thinking like racism and all that. Roger, I'm sorry, but I am going to make my position. I think it's going to be a landslide in terms of electoral college, not in popular vote in favor of Trump.
Well, we know we understand how American politics go. Is the electoral college who first reached to 360. So 270. Sorry, it's 360, I think, overall. Yeah.
No, it's 500 and whatever it is. The most congressional seats they have, but it's 270 give you the presidency.
Okay, 270 stand corrected. So, but we all, as I say, it's not the popular votes, but it is. The electoral college, so we would see. But what I would say, back in
just a little side, I need to put up on my Navigenness, fist pump in the air. That's another Hamilton written into the Constitution of the Electoral College. The idea was to keep government one step away from the people. So you cannot get all gin up the people. In a passionate way, and people with forks and knives and and hoes and running through the cap and taking over the country. That's why the electoral college was done to sort of simmer down things and go put things in a rational way. There have been times, at least 3-4 times in the history of the United States, where the popular vote went one way, meaning in terms of and the electoral college reversed it.
Yes.
It doesn't reflect. But in this case, generally they generally go with the popular vote, generally hand in hand.
Well, what I would say is that polls don't determine the outcome of an election. If polls were to determine the outcome of elections, there wouldn't have been an election. We must remember when Hillary Clinton was running, she was way out, and at the end of the night, all of us, including myself, were very surprised at the outcome when Trump won the presidency. So we'll see. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Do you guys think there would be a different impact? It depends on who, on us, on the Caribbean, as the black people. Depends on who win the presidency.
Frankly, I think that it's better for the region, the Caribbean region, if the Republicans win. It has been shown over and over, when Republicans are in power, we do better. Because, the free market ideas, and not only that, the tamping down on regulations, meaning that releasing of regulation, throwing them off then. So you don't have all these regulations and there's oversight and all this sort of over due diligence and all that sort of thing. Let business run this course. However, and so investors would want to, come out and take chances in our territories and do things, and they can, that's why the offshore sector thrives so well under the Ronald Reagan, in the 80s going into the 90s and beyond that. I would say this, Roger, and Naya, one of the things you got to keep your eye on, in my opinion, the last 50 years, and I pointed it out to somebody recently, the last 50 years, let's say since 1970-something, 72, the Republicans have dominated the White House over the Democrats.
Sure.
Yeah, so, when you see a lot of this stuff that goes on in our region, it's the Reagan administration and the others, Republican administration, it's always Democrats are tend to be more big government in general, and bigger spenders domestically in America, and clamp more regulation and all that sort of thing. So it bodes well for us. That's the bottom line to it, I think. I don't know. I don't think it will help CBI because they see CBI as a threat. Them and the EU. CBI is a threat.
Well, just going back to that a bit, and we realize that our CBI program has been highly rated also.
Yeah, number one, right? I saw it. Yeah,
number one.
Yeah, number one.
Is that threatening on another side of the page?
Again, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, we invented it. No. That's what they say. I mean, the historians around here say, and then the U.S. and everybody does it. They do economic. They call it economic citizenship. That's what they call it, something to that effect. But at the end of the day, I mean, what they try. The problem with CBI in their eyes is geopolitics. Allowing people in the country and seeping into the United States, in terms of your national security issues. That's the biggest problem, and vetting and due diligence and that sort of thing. And America is very hawkish when it comes to that, I think.
Because I think when you find yourself at the top of the ladder, then there are more light shining on you there.
Yeah.
And the same people who have rated you, isn't that the same people who's going to scrutinize you,
right? And then we made some mistakes. We made some mistakes when we moved away from Henley and Partners. Okay. But again, we've tightened up again, right? But when we went to the Galaxy, the so-called Chinese thing, we made a bit of a mistake. I think. I mean, it didn't bode well, particularly geopolitics, Chinese. And you're right, and the show is here in the United States. They're going to clamp down on you. They're going to watch. They're going to watch your, the people that you let into your program very closely. And they had a few slips into the United States, and that creates some problems. And now, with the advent of what's called, I don't know if you guys have been following BRICS, which is supposed to be competing against the US dollar as the reserve currency of the world. That is a very powerful thing, the reserve currency. I don't know if you guys, a lot of people understand what it means to that. The United States make tremendous amount of money, and they can, from just being the reserve currency of the globe. I mean, the United States make 3 cents on every dollar that they produce globally, that they back globally. So every trillions of dollars, and every dollar that produced in the United States, let's say your Japanese yen or whatever, you need US dollars in your central bank, or you need US dollars in the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Every dollar they convert, they make 3 cents on everyone. It's called, I think the term is called serenage. And that goes back to the United States tax base. So it's a very, it's a lot of threat the United States under threat with a lot of these things.
Okay, I guess we are coming close to the end of the program. Final word. I think we had a very healthy discussion tonight, locally, and the political scene locally, and relationship with our sister island, and the international perspective of things, and the impact on who will win, and if who wins here on our little islands in the Caribbean. Any final word from?
Well, I think that tonight was really fruitful. It is interesting. We know that each individual would have varying views, and as such, we would have to come together as one, collectively, as one, so we can move forward in unison. So I think that the situation between St. Kitts and Nevis, until it's addressed, we are going to be speaking about it for quite a while to come. But I think that sometimes we just need to be objective and open, and try to see from another man's perspective, and see how best we can work out things going forward. It was nice being here, Naya, and Mr. Herbert, thank you very much.
Brothers, we are welcome to be here. I welcome everybody, and I'm happy to have done this so many times, one more time over.
Thank you very much. I must just say the ball is in our court, and so we've got to bounce it and bounce it properly going forward as divisions. I just want to thank the general public for being a part of the conversation this evening. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Here on One Radio, of course, and tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock you can join One Radio once again. Just don't move your dial, stay in tune with One Radio for On the Mark, 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. Thank you once again, and God bless you guys.
And opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the